Ross. Known as the Roadside Strangler, Ross terrorized the highways of Connecticut and New York. His crimes were brutal, methodical, and terrifying. He preyed on young women, leaving a trail of fear and sorrow in his wake. Ross's reign of terror began in 1981 and stretched over several years. His capture in 1984 was a relief, but also a grim reminder of the darkness lurking in suburban life. Ross's execution in 2005 closed one chapter, but the echoes of his crimes still linger. Ross did not start as a killer. Born in 1959, he was a bright child with a promising future. However, beneath the facade of normalcy, a storm was brewing. By adulthood, the storm had turned into a hurricane of uncontrollable urges. He would scout highways, searching for vulnerable victims. His chosen targets were often young women who appeared alone and defenseless. Ross would approach them under the guise of offering help. Once they were close enough, he would strike. The blueprint of his crimes was meticulous, ensuring he could continue his reign of terror undetected for years. Abduction was the beginning. Ross's victims were often young women who had no reason to suspect danger. They were students, workers, and travelers, leading ordinary lives until they crossed paths with a predator. Ross would approach his victims with a calm demeanor. He often used the ruse of offering a ride or assistance with car troubles. Once inside his vehicle, the nightmare began. The abductions were executed with a precision that left law enforcement baffled for years. The abduction was just the beginning of the ordeal for Ross's victims. Once he had them in his grasp, the true horror unfolded. Ross's crimes were not just acts of violence, but of profound degradation. He subjected his victims to sexual assault, an act that stripped them of their dignity and humanity. The physical violence was accompanied by psychological torment, leaving scars that went beyond the visible. The aftermath of the assaults was devastating. Ross's crimes left a trail of broken lives and shattered souls. Section 5. Strangulation, the final blow. Strangulation was Ross's method of murder. For Ross, strangulation was a way to exert the ultimate control over his victims. It was a slow, deliberate act that allowed him to witness the life leaving their bodies. Ross would use various tools to strangle his victims, but often his hands were his weapon of choice. The process of strangulation was methodical. Ross knew how to inflict maximum pain and prolong the suffering. The method was distinct and consistent, pointing to a single perpetrator. Section 6. Discovery of the victims. Unveiling the horrors. The discovery of Ross's victims sent shockwaves through the community. The once peaceful town was now gripped by fear and disbelief. Families who had lived there for generations were suddenly questioning their safety, and the local authorities were under immense pressure to provide answers and reassurance. Each body found was a stark reminder of the horrors that had been unfolding in the shadows. The gruesome discoveries painted a chilling picture of the terror that had been lurking unnoticed. The community was left to grapple with the reality that such evil had been so close to home. Law enforcement faced the grim task of piecing together the crimes, identifying the victims, and unraveling the mystery of the Roadside Strangler. Detectives worked around the clock, sifting through evidence, interviewing potential witnesses, and following up on countless leads. The pressure to catch the perpetrator was immense, and the weight of the community's expectations was heavy on their shoulders. The bodies were often found in remote, secluded areas. These locations were carefully chosen by Ross to avoid detection and to prolong the time it would take for the bodies to be discovered. The isolation of these sites added to the difficulty of the investigation, as it was challenging to find any witnesses or clues in such desolate places. The condition of the bodies revealed the brutality of Ross's crimes. Each victim bore the marks of his violent tendencies, and the forensic evidence painted a grim picture of their final moments. The brutality of the acts committed was almost beyond comprehension, leaving even the most seasoned investigators shaken. Forensic analysis became a crucial tool in understanding the extent of the violence and linking the murders to a single perpetrator. Advanced techniques in DNA analysis, fingerprinting, and other forensic methods provided the breakthrough needed to connect the dots. The meticulous work of forensic scientists was instrumental in building a case against Ross, piece by piece. The unveiling of Ross's crimes through the discovery of the victims was a turning point. It marked the beginning of the end for the Roadside Strangler, as the evidence gathered from the crime scenes and the forensic analysis began to close the net around him. The community, though still reeling from the horror, found a glimmer of hope in the relentless pursuit of justice by law enforcement. Section 7. Arrest. The end of the reign of terror. Ross's arrest in 1984 marked the end of a reign of terror that had gripped the region. The capture of the Roadside Strangler was not just a victory of justice, but a testament to the relentless pursuit of truth. The arrest came after a series of breakthroughs in the investigation. Forensic evidence and witness statements began to paint a clear picture. Ross's pattern of behavior and his method of operation became evident. Ross was apprehended without incident, a stark contrast to the violence of his crimes. The relief was palpable, but so was the anger and sorrow for the lives he had destroyed. Section 8. Legal proceedings, justice in the courtroom. The legal proceedings against Michael Ross were a complex and grueling process. The trial began in 1986 and captured the nation's attention. The prosecution presented a mountain of evidence. Forensic reports, witness testimonies, and Ross's own confessions painted a damning picture. Ross's defense attempted to plead insanity, arguing that he was not in control of his actions. However, the overwhelming evidence of premeditation and the calculated nature of his crimes undermined this defense. The verdict was a resounding guilty on all counts. Ross was sentenced to death, a decision that brought a measure of closure to the grieving families. Section 9. Community impact. The ripple effects of evil. The impact of Ross's crimes on the community was profound and far-reaching. His actions left an indelible mark on the hearts and minds of the people who lived through those harrowing times. The once vibrant and lively neighborhoods were now shrouded in an atmosphere of fear and suspicion. The fear that gripped the region during his reign of terror was replaced by a collective trauma that lingered long after his capture. Parents no longer felt safe letting their children play outside, and the once bustling playgrounds became eerily silent. The community's sense of security was shattered, and it would take years to rebuild the trust that was lost. Schools and community organizations launched initiatives to educate the public on safety and awareness. These programs aim to empower individuals with the knowledge and tools needed to protect themselves and their loved ones. Workshops on self-defense, seminars on recognizing suspicious behavior, and campaigns promoting neighborhood watch programs became commonplace. The importance of vigilance and the need for community solidarity became central themes. Neighbors began to look out for one another more than ever before, forming tight-knit bonds that helped to restore a sense of unity. Community meetings were held regularly to discuss safety measures and share information, fostering a spirit of cooperation and mutual support. The psychological impact on the victims' families was immense. The loss of loved ones left a void that could never be filled, and the emotional scars ran deep. Memorial services were held to honor the lives that were tragically cut short, and makeshift memorials became places of solace and remembrance for the grieving community. Support groups and counseling services became vital lifelines for those affected. These resources provided a safe space for individuals to share their experiences, process their emotions, and begin the healing journey. Therapists and counselors worked tirelessly to help the community cope with the trauma and rebuild their lives. The community rallied around the families, offering support and solidarity in their time of need. Candlelight vigils and solidarity marches were organized to show that they were not alone in their grief. These acts of compassion and unity helped to strengthen the community's resolve and reminded everyone that they could overcome even the darkest of times together. The legacy of Ross's crimes was a reminder of the darkness that can exist within seemingly ordinary individuals. It served as a stark warning that evil can lurk in the most unexpected places, and that vigilance and community support are essential in safeguarding against such threats. The community's journey towards healing was a testament to their resilience and determination to reclaim their sense of safety and peace. Section 10. Execution and Reflection, the final chapter. This chapter delves into the final moments of Michael Ross, the notorious roadside strangler, and the lasting impact of his actions. It is a somber reflection on justice, loss, and the enduring pain felt by the victims' families. Michael Ross was executed on May 13, 2005. This date marked the culmination of years of legal battles, appeals, and emotional turmoil for everyone involved. The execution was not just an end to Ross's life, but a significant moment in the history of criminal justice. His execution marked the end of the Roadside Strangler's story, but the reflections on his crimes and their impact continued. The courtroom battles, the media coverage, and the public's fascination with the case all contributed to a complex narrative that extended far beyond the prison walls. For the victims' families, the execution brought a measure of justice, but also a reminder of their loss. The grief they experienced was profound and enduring. Memorial services and candlelight vigils became a way to honor their loved ones and to find some semblance of peace amidst the sorrow. The pain of their loved one's absence was a constant, and while Ross's death ended his story, it did not erase the memories or the grief. Families often found themselves looking through photo albums, visiting cemeteries, and reflecting on what might have been. The emotional scars left by Ross's actions were deep and long-lasting. The broader implications of Ross's crimes and execution were significant. They sparked debates about the death penalty, the effectiveness of the justice system, and the ways in which society deals with violent crime. Newspaper headlines and courtroom sketches kept the public engaged and informed, while police lights flashing in the night served as a stark reminder of the dangers that lurk in the shadows. They highlighted the importance of vigilance, the need for a robust justice system, and the resilience of those affected by such tragedies. The case of Michael Ross became a rallying point for advocates of justice reform and for those who had lost loved ones to violence. Marches for justice and public demonstrations underscored the collective desire for a safer, more just society. The Roadside Strangler may be gone, but the impact of his actions will be felt for generations. The empty streets and dark roads where he once prowled now stand as silent witnesses to his crimes. The timeline of his past offenses serves as a grim reminder of the lives lost and the families shattered. As we reflect on this final chapter, we are reminded of the enduring need for vigilance, compassion, and justice in our society.